Hello. I know that this isn't one of my normal videos, but seeing as YouTube is my biggest platform, I will use this time to speak out about the Line 3 pipeline. So please, I ask that you stick around for this. Before we begin, most of the information in this video comes from stopline3.org, which I will link in the description along with any other information. For those who don't know, Line 3 is a proposed pipeline expansion to bring nearly 1 million barrels of tar sands per day from Alberta, Canada to Superior, Wisconsin. Stopline3.org. This pipeline was proposed back in 2014 by Enbridge. Enbridge is a Canadian company that was responsible for the largest inland oil spill in the U.S. They seek to build this pipeline through untouched wetlands. Not only that, but it would go through the treaty territory of Anishinaabe people. If this pipeline goes through, it would impede on indigenous rights and aid climate change. Not only that, but the chance of an inland oil spill are insanely high. Enbridge, the company who proposed the pipeline, has had over 800 spills in the last 15 years. This includes the Kalamazoo oil spill back in 2010. More on that later. The bottom line is that for a given pipeline in any 10-year period, there is a 57% chance of a major spill, as documented by a U.S. Department of Transportation study using PHMSA data. Ki 2012, Leak Detection Study, DTPH 5611D00001. That's worse than flipping a coin. Stopline3.org. Line 3 would contribute more to climate change than Minnesota's entire economy. Stopline3.org. It was also found by Minnesota's Department of Commerce that the pipeline isn't necessary. They don't need Line 3 oil. There is absolutely no economic need for this pipeline. Not only that, but it is highly likely that this pipeline will be abandoned. There is more about the effects of pipeline abandonment on Stopline3.org. Trigger warning for sex and drug trafficking. I will put a timestamp if you wish to skip this part. So with construction comes what is known as mancamps, a temporary housing facility for the mostly male workers that come to an area to work on major development projects. Research has shown a direct correlation between these mancamps and increased drug and sex trafficking as well as violent crime. Typically these camps foster a culture of drug and alcohol abuse, violence, misogyny, and racism. Camp life exacerbates isolation, mental illness, and substance abuse problems, as the men face stressful, difficult, and potentially dangerous working conditions, often combined with large paychecks. The result is often devastating for women, children, and two-spirit people in nearby communities and in the international sex trafficking industry that feeds them. This is one of the many causes of the epidemic of missing and murdered indigenous women, MMIW, of which Minnesota and neighboring regions are some of the hardest hit. Stopline3.org. Now let's talk about Enbridge's track record. A total of 800 spills in the last 15 years doesn't look so good. Of these oil spills include the largest inland oil spill in U.S. history. The Kalamazoo River oil spill happened back in July 2010. The release, estimated by Enbridge at 843,000 gallons, entered Talmadge Creek and flowed into the Kalamazoo River, a Lake Michigan tributary. Heavy rains caused the river to overtop existing dams and carried oil at least 35 miles downstream on the Kalamazoo River. Enbridge Spill Response Timeline, EPA.gov. On July 28, the spill was contained only 80 river miles from Lake Michigan. According to USGS, the term river mile is the distance from the mouth of the creek or river to the gauge, to the nearest tenth of a mile. Water data USGS.gov. Let's talk about how Line 3 would affect indigenous people. Before we start, I am not an indigenous person nor do I claim to be. I strongly encourage to listen to indigenous people on this issue. That being said, let's discuss. As stated before, this pipeline goes through the treaty territory of the Anishinaabe people. Even on ceded territory, off-reservation, Ojibwe tribal members retain certain property rights that allow them to make a modest living from the land. These use rights are called usufructuary rights, and are guaranteed by the treaties between Ojibwe bands and the U.S. government, protected by the U.S. Constitution, and affirmed by the U.S. Supreme Court. They include the rights to hunt, fish, gather medicinal plants, harvest and cultivate wild rice, and preserve sacred or culturally significant sites. New oil pipelines in northern Minnesota would violate the treaty rights of the Anishinabeg by endangering critical natural and cultural resources in the 1842, 1854, and 1855 treaty areas. All pipelines leak, and catastrophes like Enbridge's 1 million gallon spill in 2010 on the Kalamazoo River are not unlikely. Pipelines threaten the culture, way of life, and physical survival of the Ojibwe people. Where there is wild rice, there are Anishinabeg, and where there are Anishinabeg, there is wild rice. It is our sacred food. Without it we will die. It's that simple. Stopline3.org. If you do decide to go out to the front lines, I beg of you to stay safe. Law enforcement can now kill water protectors. I will link an article with more information below. Not only that, please stay respectful of the land you are on. I encourage you all to go and learn more about this. I've signed the petition, so should you. If you are unable to donate, raise awareness. Share this video with your friends. Find other people speaking up about this. Sign petitions. And most important, listen to indigenous voices.